Cool. So this week we are battling Blazingify. I don't actually remember what his team name is. Let me find him somewhere. The Scranton Septiles. He has a wonderfully hyper-offensive team that he drafted with a lot of intimidators. He has Jirachi as his tier 1 pick, and an offensive power in Gengar, Tornadus, Hoopa, Incineroar, Masquerain, Gyarados, Lucario, Granbull, Megamanectric. Basically, his whole team is hyper offense. He actually dropped Rotom Frost and picked up Guzzlord this past week, I think in response to my Victini that he knew he would be battling. Jirachi is an incredibly powerful threat. I do not like facing Jirachi. It gets Calm Mind, it gets Cosmic Power, Z Celebrate, Stored Power, gets Iron Head, Thunder Wave, Substitute, Psychic, Zen Headbutt. It's like Victini. If I hadn't drafted Victini, I would have drafted Jirachi. It's just such a good Pokemon. The other things I was really afraid of when prepping was his Gyarados. Gyarados is really versatile. As well as his Granbull. I don't really have a ton to hit fairy types. I have Empoleon and Bronzong, and that's about it. So it really was important for me to think about who I was bringing this week. Based off of my team, I think that he's bringing, as you can see, Gyarados, Guzzlord, Granbull, Gengar, Jirachi, and Incineroar. I'm thinking Gyarados will have Flyanium Z just because he's a good Z-Fly user. Probably Guzzlord because he just drafted him, so maybe it's to throw me off. But he also walls my team fairly well. He's a better wall than any of his other Pokemon. I'm suspecting Granbull because I have things like Sableye, like Salamence, like Girder, like Mega Ampharos that don't like fairy types. Most of my team doesn't care for Intimidate, which he has, I believe it's 7 or so Intimidators out of his 11 Pokemon team. And so I'm really not looking forward to that, which is why I'm bringing quite a few special attackers this week to avoid Intimidate altogether. I considered bringing Adrenaline or Victini so that when he intimidates me, I get the speed boost and I can wipe through him with like a Victini with, I don't know, Fusion Bolt and V-Create or something. But I actually decided, I noticed that all of his speeds were quite high compared to my team, and so I'm bringing a Trick Room team this week. I drafted Bronzong as a potential Trick Room setter. I have Victini as a Trick Room setter. I'm not bringing Victini because I felt that he would be so over prepping for my Victini this week that I wouldn't need to bring it. I'm bringing, as you can see, Bronzong, Piloswine, Salamence, Mega Ampharos, Ninetales, and Empoleon. He has a big weakness to ground. He has 4 ground weaknesses, so Piloswine was obvious. The fast speed tier makes Bronzong a great Trick Room setter, makes Mega Ampharos a great Trick Room sweeper. Empoleon, we're running slow, so he works really well in Trick Room, as well as having Aqua Jet for priority. And then Empoleon has Defiant, which boosts his attack if his stats are lowered. Plenty of Intimidators. I think I'll get a Defiant boost at least once. He has 3 Pokemon weak to Electric. That made Mega Ampharos an even better Trick Room sweeper. I considered bringing Rotom Wash, however, didn't really fit on my team, and I'm using Empoleon as my water type. And then he has Rock and Fighting weaknesses, but I felt with Girder having so many Intimidators and Granbull, even though Girder works really well in Trick Room, I felt like bringing a Fighting type wasn't going to be the best decision this week. So, let's get into the actual team that I am bringing. Here we have our first Pokemon, Salamence. Salamence was the first one that I started building. We're bringing a heavily offensive Salamence this week with Defog, just in case he wants to set rocks. Rocks aren't the biggest issue. I don't believe he has many rock setters. Jirachi gets stealth rocks, as maybe Guzzlord, maybe Lucario. He doesn't have a lot of rock setters, which is really nice and convenient, because even though my team doesn't hurt from rocks, things like Ninetales and Salamence don't really appreciate rocks. We are running Crunch, Defog, Earthquake, Irontail with Life Orb. Obviously Intimidate, we're not going for a sweep with Salamence with Moxie. Our Salamence calcs here. Offensively, a -2 Life Orb Salamence, that's after an Intimidate off of Mega Manectric. And I believe that should only be -1, but for some reason the calc was messing up the -2, -1. I don't know. Our Salamence guaranteed 2-hit KOs, Mega Manectric, and it's really nice because we guaranteed survive 2 Mega Manectric Thunderbolts as a 3-hit KO, and then we also do survive a Hidden Power Ice from Mega Manectric, which is very useful. Offensively, also, an Irontail on max defense Granbull is a 49.4%. Doubt he would be running max defense Granbull, but that's also after an Intimidate. If we swap in on Granbull, we actually survive a Play Rough decently comfortably, 61 to 72% on Intimidated Granbull. And we also, this is Salamence without being intimidated, does about 73%, so quite a bit more without the Intimidate, which is what we're hoping for. As well, defensively, Tornadus Eyes Thunderbolt, guaranteed 3-hit KO on Salamence, we can comfortably switch into it. Gyarados' Ice Fang is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, we do survive on 0.6%, and so depending on how Showdown deals with percents of percentages, fractions of percentages, we might want to be careful on that. That's also not from Adamant Gyarados, and so that's, I believe, Timid Gyarados, so we'll have to, or Quiet, whichever one is the boosting speed minus special attack. So I know last week he did bring a mixed Gyarados, and so though I'm not afraid of that, that is a possibility, so maybe he won't be running Adamant. But we really don't want to be switching Salamence on an Ice Fang. A -1 Lucario Ice Punch we comfortably take with 30% to spare approximately. And then, of course, Granbull's calculations. So our Salamence, very offensive pressure, or not very, a lot of offensive pressure. The Crunch is for things like Jirachi and Gengar. The Earthquake is for things like Jirachi, Gengar. What else? Incineroar is a great Pokemon to switch in with Salamence, as well as Lucario can't take an Earthquake. So great Pokemon all around. The Intimidate's going to be really helpful. Next up, we have our Bronzong. Mental Herb, Trick Room, Flash Cannon, Trick, Earthquake, Heat Proof, and some nice defensive spread. So real utility Bronzong. We're running mixed special and physical attacking, Trick Room and Trick. So we're bringing Mental Herb with Trick Room. I believe he only has 1 or 2 Taunters. I think Jirachi, Gengar, and maybe Torn get it. Incineroar also gets it. I don't know about all the others. I haven't checked extensively, but that's what Mental Herb is for, just so we can comfortably always get a Trick Room off. We're running Trick because after either the Mental Herb is expended, or if we don't need to use the Mental Herb, it's been really handy in my practice battles, just taking an item and giving them a Mental Herb, which, because I'm not running Taunters or Encore users, Mental Herb won't do anything for him. So I can give him basically a useless item, maybe take a Leftovers, something like, I don't know, maybe a Life Orb would be really helpful on Bronzong. We're running Heat Proof this week, and that's because quite a few of our calcs rely on Heat Proof. I think he expects me to run Levitate. He doesn't have a massive amount of Earthquake users, just, I believe, Incineroar, Gyarados, and maybe Guzzlord, maybe Granbull. But I'm not too afraid of Earthquake. Really, the only Earthquake weak Pokemon would be my Ampharos, and the rest are mostly neutrally hit by it, and so I'm not too afraid of Earthquake, actually. That's why I'm running Heat Proof. It seems unexpected. Non-invested Bronzong, 3-hit KOs Incineroar, which isn't a ton, but it's nice to know. Flash Cannon, 2-hit KOs, specially defensive or non-specially invested Granbull but max HP. That's really interesting because I don't even have to invest in special attack in order to 2-hit KO Granbull. As well, Earthquake is a 4-hit KO on Jirachi. Not much, but still good chip damage, especially from non-invested Bronzong. Defensively, however, Timid Life Orb Gengar is going to be a 2-hit KO on Bronzong. What is it? Max special attack Modest Jirachi. Shadow Ball is a 3-hit KO on specially defensive Bronzong, which is really nice. Bronzong's very bulky this week. The reason why we're running Heat Proof is because Max Attack Adamant Incineroar Flare Blitz is a 3-hit KO on Bronzong, so even if he leads Incineroar, if he taunts, if he Flare Blitzes, if he knockoffs, I survive all of it. Here you can see Incineroar's knockoff does slightly more than Flare Blitz, but after the Mental Herb is consumed, it will do slightly less, or I guess knocked off, it will do slightly less. So Incineroar would actually be a surprisingly great lead if we decide to lead Bronzong. Max Attack Granbull Earthquake is a 60% on Bronzong maximum roll. However, I don't expect him to be Earthquaking Bronzong. We just would have to be very careful not to swap in on an Earthquake in order to bluff that Levitate. Lucario Dark Pulse, non-invested Lucario Dark Pulse, does about 40% to Bronzong. I didn't actually calc fully invested. That's my bad. I should go back and do that. And then Mega Electric Overheat to Heat Proof Bronzong, guaranteed 3-hit KO. So Heat Proof could really come in handy if we can keep that hidden. If it does get out, Earthquake might become a problem, but we have other switch-ins to Earthquake like Salamence, like Piloswine, like Empoleon. They all take Earthquakes fairly comfortably. Speaking of Piloswine, our next Pokemon is Piloswine. Eviolite, of course. Thick Fat, of course. I might run Sheer Force at some point if I want to be offensive, but this week he's a fairly defensive man. He's a little more supportive than offensive, but the EVs don't really show that. He's running Earthquake, Stealth Rock, Freeze Dry, Rock Slide, mostly the same as last time, just Rock Slide for a little more accuracy and Freeze Dry specifically for that Gyarados. Here are his calcs. Offensively, he has a small chance, but a chance, 20% chance to OHKO a 0 defense Jirachi. So if he's running something like Scarferachi, as long as an Iron Head doesn't, or if he's locked into something other than Iron Head, or I didn't actually. Oh, I did calc. It's down here. The Adamant Jirachi Iron Head does not OHKO our Piloswine, even with 0 defensive investments, just because of Eviolite and HP. So as long as Iron Head doesn't flinch, we have a chance to OHKO that Jirachi. I'd rather not be in that position, but it's possible. Freeze Dry on Gyarados does about 60%, guaranteed 2-hit KO. Gyarados' Waterfall is a guaranteed 2-hit KO on us. However, in Trick Room, we would outspeed, so that's good to know. And Piloswine's Earthquake on Incineroar has a very high chance to OHKO, and Incineroar's Flare Blitz is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, so we know we can survive it, which means we're always free to Earthquake in Trick Room, and we might even be free to Earthquake outside of Trick Room if he's not maximum HP invested in Incineroar. As well, we survive a modest Gengar Energy Ball. I'm kind of afraid of Scarf Gengar this week. If we don't get that Trick Room up, Scarf Gengar puts in the work with Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, Icy Wind, Shadow Ball. So I'm kind of preparing for Piloswine to kind of come in on that Energy Ball, hopefully in Trick Room, and then Earthquake and KO the Gengar. Because if he is Scarf Gengar, then we always OHKO with an Earthquake. Next up, we have our Alolan Ninetales, rocking the light clay with Aurora Veil this week. This will be the first time we're bringing Alolan Ninetales. I'm really hyped. Tier 2 pick. I love Aurora Veil. Freeze Dry again for the Gyarados. Moonblast just for the offensive pressure. And Moonblast will always OHKO that Guzzlord as long as he's not some weird set, which props to him if he is. And then Dark Pulse. So we're running max HP, max special attack. Typically you run max speed, but because it's a Trick Room team, despite being 223 speed, we're not exactly the slowest of the bunch, but we might be able to underspeed some things. I've gone back and forth between speed investment and HP investment because Ninetales really doesn't live a lot, but we'll see on the calcs it does live some. So offensively, Moonblast against max special defense, or max invested special defense Guzzlord has a 25% chance to OHKO, so pretty much any other Guzzlord that's always going to OHKO. Dark Pulse against Hoopa is going to guaranteed 2-hit KO after hail damage. Hoopa doesn't have much to hit us, so typically we're safe against Hoopa. Dark Pulse against Gengar, guaranteed 2-hit KO after hail. That's maximum HP Gengar, that's Scarf Gengar. Moonblast against AV Incineroar only does just under 30%, so that doesn't exactly seem the safest thing to stay into, considering they Incineroar always OHKOs with Flare Blitz. However, if we figure out it's Berry, it might be a little bit safer to stay in. And then Gyarados Stone Edge against non-invested Ninetales actually survives on 0.6%. Again, that 99.4% is gonna be our magic number this week because all of our Pokemon seem to survive on it. So Ninetales actually is fairly bulky with that HP investment. And actually, this should be lower because this is a defensive calculation, not an offensive. So Guzzlord, modest Poison Jab is going to have a very high chance to 2-hit KO. Obviously, Adamant Poison Jab, always going to 2-hit KO, might even OHKO. I don't think so. I think it does around 60%. But Modest Sludge Wave is going to do 62%. And so we always outspeed Guzzlord outside of Trick Room, but in Trick Room we want to be a little bit careful. We want to set that Aurora Veil before we Moonblast, which the great thing about Aurora Veil is all of these close calcs, right around the 50 to 60s or the 40s to 50s, is that under Aurora Veil it halves damage, and I believe it halves damage. Yeah, it halves damage, and so those 50% rolls, those 70% rolls, those are going to be 25 and 30%, which is going to be incredibly useful. Gengar's Sludge Wave has a high chance to OHKO, so Scarf Gengar might be a threat if it's modest. If it's timid, it has a lower chance to OHKO, but we never really want to stay in with Ninetales on a Gengar if we don't have Aurora Veil up. If we do, though, it never will OHKO with an Aurora Veil up, so we're free to Dark Pulse against that Gengar. Our next Pokemon, Empoleon, also the first time he's seeing action. Lada the first time. We're bringing a very different team than last week. So Empoleon's rocking the Aqua Jet Waterfall knockoff Roar. It's got Defiant, it's got the Wakan Berry. Lot of HP, lot of attack, min speed hopefully for that Trick Room, Aqua Jet for the priority. We're bringing the Wakan Berry because it does change some roles with Manectric and Gengar. Aqua Jet for the priority, Waterfall for damage, Knockoff to take items, and Roar to phase out something like a Stockpile Guzzlord, a Dragon Dance Gyarados, just to get rid of setups. And then of course Defiant, because he has so many Intimidators, we want that Defiant Empoleon to get intimidated as much as possible, because he's always going to get that attack boost. So our calcs on Empoleon, he's going to be our Liquidation against Mega Manectric has a very high chance to 2-hit KO, but doesn't even matter because we hit it once with a Liquidation, does a lot of damage. We go in with an Aqua Jet. If we get an Intimidation off on Empoleon from Mega Manectric, I think we just OHKO him with Liquidation. It's a great set this week. Empoleon's knockoff against Jirachi can be about 34 to 41%. So quite a chunk, and also taking any item. Waterfall, we're not actually running Waterfall. I ran the we're running Waterfall, not Liquidation. Ran the wrong calc on Manectric. It's about the same with Waterfall. I was too lazy to change it. So Waterfall on Incineroar can be about 60 to 70%. Incineroar's Intimidate gonna boost that Waterfall. Also got Aqua Jet, so we do that. Like here we go, the Aqua Jet 30 to 36, which means we can even non-intimidated Empoleon, Waterfall, Aqua Jet, and we just KO Incineroar. Mega Manectric's Thunderbolt does 81 to 95%. This is timid Mega Manectric to Empoleon. The Wakanberry halves that. Even modest Mega Manectric, the Wakanberry halves that. We take not comfortably, not healthily, but more safely a Thunderbolt or a Volt Switch on Empoleon. Gengar's Thunderbolt going to be doing 50, 70, 67%. Again, Wakanberry's going to help out with that. Guzzlord's Hammer Arm, 54 to 65%. So it's going to hurt, but hopefully, unless he's adamant Guzzlord, we can take a Hammer Arm. Jirachi, I don't even know if Jirachi gets Drain Punch. I calc Jirachi Drain Punch for whatever reason. It's doing maybe half if he is lucky and adamant. Doubt he'll really be running a Drain Punch. And I ran that twice apparently, so don't know what that was about. Anyways, Mega Ampharos, our Mega, seeing battle for the first time this season. Obviously, we're running the Ampharos site with Static before he Mega Evolves, Mold Breaker after he Mega Evolves. Mold Breaker's great because Lightning Rod, Manectric, we ignore it. We just can Volt Switch out on a Manectric. We can Thunderbolt it, whatever we want. We're running Volt Switch, Dragon Pulse, Focus Blast, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch just to get out of there, Dragon Pulse specifically for that. Guzzlord, as well as quite a few other threats on his team, don't take it very comfortably. Focus Blast for that Guzzlord, but primarily for the Incineroar, and then Thunderbolt just for some nice stab damage. Some nice EVs here this week. Offensively, a Focus Blast off of Mega Manectric onto AV Incineroar is a guaranteed 2-hit KO. Berry Incineroar, it always 1-hit KOs. If we land, obviously, Focus Blast is known to miss. Dragon Pulse on Guzzlord is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, brings him down to 10%. Thunderbolt on Lucario is a 50% chance to OHKO, 50-50. Hopefully, if we are under Trick Room, we hit a Thunderbolt and then can Volt Switch out or something. Or we can easily take a Bullet Punch or a, Vacuum Wave from Lucario, or a Mach Punch. Don't think he gets Mach Punch, but we can easily take his priority moves. Defensively, with Aurora Veil, we easily take a Draco Meteor at 45 to 53%, which is crazy because we can swap in Mega Ampharos with an Aurora Veil up, swap it in on Guzzlord, Dragon Pulse our Guzzlord, and as we know, our Dragon Pulse does a guaranteed 2-hit KO, which means if we swap in on Guzzlord, we just win. Granbull's Play Rough, we survive it at roughly 10% of our HP, which is really nice. Guzzlord's Earthquake, we survive with 30% of our HP. So if he's running mixed Guzzlord, we can take both a Draco Meteor and an Earthquake unless he rolls max on both of those. And then Gyarados' Earthquake also does about a 60-some%, so we can swap in on an Earthquake, Volt Switch, knock out his Gyarados, and swap back out. I'm feeling really comfortable with this team. At first, I was really uncertain building it. I didn't have any experience with a lot of these Pokemon. I've never used Mega Manectric. I rarely use Empoleon. Honestly, I rarely use Bronzong, despite how good he is. But after some practice battles, after running through my calcs, I feel a lot more comfortable. All of the battles against Finn, I decisively won. Granted, Finn isn't exactly playing to counter team me, but he put up a good fight and actually got me pretty close sometimes. He had a lot of misses. Otherwise, I would have lost one of our games. But so I feel very comfortable with how this team operates. My leads will be either Ninetales to get up the Aurora Veil or Bronzong to get up that Trick Room. Empoleon is a wonderful late game sweeper, as well as Mega Ampharos, both under Trick Room. Salamence is a great switch in. Despite being run offensively, it also has some great defensive capabilities. Piloswine, he's here, he's ready to party. He takes hits, he dishes out damage, doesn't do a whole lot, but he does what he needs to do. Stealth Rock's not essential to this match, but really useful. I feel like this team overall has some great synergy. This will probably be kind of the standard Trick Room team that I would be bringing to most matches. And so I'm really excited to get to test out the Trick Room mode of my team in the upcoming battle, which hopefully will be Tuesday. I believe this should be going up the same day as, obviously same day as the battle, but hopefully on Tuesday, because obviously don't put up the team builders until after the battle. So I will see you when the battle happens. Wear your seatbelt. Have a good day.